Hey everyone, today we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us, our health. But we're going to look at it through a lens that might just flip the way you think about it forever.
So let's start with a really big question. Is being healthy just not being sick? I mean, if you go to a doctor, they run the tests and can't find anything biologically wrong, does that mean you're truly well? It seems so straightforward, right? But the answer, well, it's way more complex than you think.
We usually think about sickness in purely biological terms. You've got a virus, a broken bone, some kind of chemical imbalance. But medical anthropology shows us that what's happening inside our bodies is honestly just one little piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
Turns out, the very way we define health and sickness is being shaped by all these hidden forces: the culture we grow up in, the society we're a part of, and yeah, even the political systems that run our lives. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back those layers and see how these forces really impact our well-being.
Okay, let's get into it. To really understand this bigger picture, medical anthropologists use this kind of toolkit, 3 different lenses for looking at human suffering. Think of them as just different angles on the exact same experience. So first up, we've got disease. This is the one we're all familiar with. It's the clinical, scientific view. It's what your doctor is looking for, a biological problem, like a bacterial infection or an organ that's not working right, something that biomedicine can point to and explain.
Next, there's illness. Now, this is totally different. This is your personal, subjective experience of being unwell. It's how you feel it. It's your understanding of your own distress, the story you tell yourself about what's happening. It's completely from your point of view.
And finally, there's sickness. This one is all about the social and cultural perspective. How does your community, your society, recognize and label what you're going through? Is it even considered a real condition? Is there a name for it? How are you supposed to act when you have it? This is where culture steps in and gives meaning to it all. So let's just quickly put that all together. Disease is the biology, illness is your personal experience of it, and sickness is the social meaning everyone else gives it. They're absolutely not the same thing. They're 3 distinct but overlapping ways of understanding suffering. And to really get what it means to be healthy, you have to consider all 3.
But, it gets even deeper than that. Culture doesn't just shape our ideas about sickness, it can physically change our biology over generations. It's this incredible process that anthropologists call biocultural adaptation.
Let's take a look at a really classic example: sickle cell anemia. Now, it's caused by a gene variant that by itself is actually pretty harmful. So why on earth would a dangerous gene become common in certain populations? The answer is just this fascinating dance between human culture and our genetics. Let's walk through how this actually happened. So it all started with a cultural practice: farming. As humans started clearing forests for agriculture, they accidentally created these perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes. And that led to a massive spike in malaria, a super deadly disease. But here's the twist. It turns out that carrying just 1 copy of the sickle cell gene gives you significant resistance to malaria. So a cultural shift, the invention of farming, literally changed the environment in a way that made a previously harmful gene a total lifesaver. Okay, so we've seen how culture can literally shape our genes. Now let's talk about how it shapes something even more fundamental: our idea of who we even are, our concept of the self.
In a lot of Western societies, we tend to think of the self as this bounded thing, a single, independent person contained inside our own skin. Health is something that happens inside us. But in so many other cultures, the self is seen as more porous and decentered. It's open to the world, to spirits, to outside forces. A person can have multiple, even fluid senses of self.
And honestly, you don't even have to look that far to see this in action today. Just think about virtual worlds like Second Life. A single person can create multiple, totally distinct avatars, or alts, each with its own personality, its own friends. This is a perfect modern-day example of what anthropologists call a dividual, or a decentered self, where one person contains all these different separate identities.
So far, we've looked at the cultural and the personal, but now we've got to zoom way out to the biggest and honestly the most invisible force of all: the way our societies are structured. This is where you can really see how huge political and economic systems create very real, very personal pain. And medical anthropologists have a really powerful name for this: structural violence. Now, this isn't about one person hitting another. It's about how political and economic forces systematically put certain groups of people at a much greater risk for suffering, whether that's from disease,
hunger, or actual violence. The physician and anthropologist Paul Farmer captured this so tragically in his work in Haiti. He wrote that the suffering of two young Haitians, Asefi and Chuchu, was modal, which basically means it was typical, a predictable pattern created by the very structure of their society. Let's just briefly look at their stories.
So Asefi's family lost everything when a huge dam project, a major economic decision, flooded their land. This threw them deep into poverty. That poverty is what pushed Asefi into a relationship with a soldier, one of the only men around with a steady income. From him, she contracted AIDS and died way too young. Her personal tragedy was directly tied to a massive economic policy.
And then there was Chuchu Louis. He was living under a really repressive military regime. One day, he just made a casual comment about how bad the roads were. An out-of-uniform soldier overheard him, and for that tiny remark, he was arrested, brutally tortured, and murdered. His death was a direct result of a political structure that violently crushed any form of dissent.
So here's the crucial thing. Neither Asefi nor Chuchu were just unlucky. They were victims of structural violence. The risks they faced were baked into their lives long before they were born by these huge forces of poverty, gender inequality, and political oppression. Their individual suffering was really just the final stop for these massive, invisible systems.
So why does all of this matter? Why is looking at health through this anthropological lens so incredibly important? What does it actually change?
Well, it changes pretty much everything. It shows us that health is never just biological. It's always biocultural, a fusion of biology and culture. It reveals that our very sense of who we are isn't some fixed thing. And maybe most importantly, it forces us to see that the biggest drivers of human suffering are often these invisible structures: poverty, inequality, political power. And that means if we really want to solve health crises, we can't just fixate on individual bodies and diseases. We have to go upstream and fix the systems that make people sick in the first place.
And that really brings us to the final question, the one I want to leave you with. We've talked about other cultures and places far away, but what about you? What are the invisible cultural, social, and political forces that are shaping your health right here, right now? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.